We want to start with our first keynote speaker this afternoon, and he has an incredibly interesting title, and hopefully he's going to explain what the title itself means and how we came to that. He is here today from SAP. He is the Vice President and the Global Evangelist of SAP. Is that correct? Yeah, Theo Priestley. Give him a big round of applause. Theo. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining me in the graveyard shift. I didn't realize that when I was going to step on board to talk about the digital economy, I would actually become physically part of it. I am now a cyborg, the first cyborg at SAP. I got an NFC implant just across there by DigiWell, and that's going to be... that's going to really present me. I wish I could actually change the slides with this as well. So, as I said, I'm Theo Priestley. I'm going to talk about building a digital economy. And like this proves, the pace of change in terms of technology itself is rapidly shifting. People are driving that change as well. It's incredible what's happening. If you think it took 75 years for the telephone to reach 50 million users, but it took 19 days for an app that allows you to chase virtual reality animals across your streets, only 19 days. The shift is incredible. I wonder actually how long it's going to take 50 million people to actually have NFC implants. There's something to actually ponder on. But something we'd all love to be part of this chart. Sad fact is we won't be because we're still stuck in our old traditional mentalities. And the digital economy and people are seeking new experiences. They're seeking new connections. They're looking for service-based outcomes. And tradition and traditional business processes and models are dying. Is anyone here from financial services background at all? Because if you are, I would be scared by this chart. People are more inclined to put their money in a coffee loyalty scheme than they are in your bank accounts. People don't care about the product anymore. A bank account is not a product. People want experience. They associate value of putting their money in a loyalty scheme with the service and the outcome that that provides. They don't care about interest rates. A bank account product, you cannot differentiate anymore. It's obviously the service layers that are around it that you can differentiate. 1.2 billion, that's a lot of money. It's more money in some banks that hold as deposits. And it's the connection here that I want to try and make. So connect the global and digital economy connects different industries, connects experiences, connects services. It's more than just one industry. It's more than just one technology. We tend to think of, well, I build my digital economy and I'm in manufacturing and that's all I care about. Or I build it in healthcare and that's all I care about. It's wrong. A digital economy is actually connecting many different industries together using many different technologies. So I want to jump into a healthcare example, actually. So if you can imagine in the near future, you are diagnosed by an AI doctor. Whether it's an app, whether you physically have to go into a doctor's surgery or not, an AI will know more about you than your bank, for example. And the doctor, they'll know about your physical attributes, they'll know about your medical history, they'll be able to diagnose instantly what's actually wrong. So you'll be diagnosed by an AI doctor. A human doctor will actually verify this, and we'll start to plan the surgery. Now, in this example, I want to sort of paint a picture of you've been diagnosed with something wrong with your hip, and you're going in for an operation for a replacement. If you think a couple of years from now, because they're starting to do this already, you will enter that hospital, you will have a 3D printed hip ready for you because they already know what you look like on the inside. That 3D printed hip will have embedded sensors, so you are part of the digital economy already by feeding it real-time information all the way back into your medical records. Your surgery will most likely be performed by a robot, or certainly whole or in part. That robot will perform the surgery. You will come out and convalesce and be picked up by a robotic car, an autonomous car who will take you home after you've rested up at the hospital. And you will be taken care of at home, in your own home, by a really cute, cuddly robot teddy bear who will look after you. This is your robot carer. And everything you do at home is going to be monitored by smart sensors. Your smart home is going to be connected to your digital health record. So everything you do, how you convalesce, how you're doing, is actually going to be uploaded into your health records. It's going to be monitored by, obviously, the robot assistants as well, by the sensors in your hip. All done in real time. They'll be collected and correlated against everyone else's medical records who have undergone exactly the same procedure. You will become part of those statistics and actually feed in to show where on that chart you are, whether you've deviated from normal practice, whether you actually, the way you convalesce, the way you've rested, the way you recover actually improves the global mean, and someone else further down the line who undergoes the same kind of surgery will actually adopt the same practices that you've done. And of course, all that information is going to be made available to other third parties. Utilities companies, for example, will be able to adjust their rates and their contracts with you on the fly in real time, minute by minute. The same with insurance companies, your health insurance, any other insurance company that you have, or product that you have, subscription-based, will be updated by your medical records in real time, minute by minute. And this is supposed to lead us to a better life. But the point I'm trying to make with this example is, I call it a journey into digital healthcare, but it's not just healthcare. If you actually think about the journey that customer or I went through for my new hip, it involved in the digital economy. I've connected healthcare, I've connected pharmaceuticals, for obviously I've got to have drugs. Automotive, for the autonomous cars. Smart home, to monitor me as I'm recovering. The utilities companies, the insurance companies, for example. There's six different industries all taking place in that one single customer journey wrapped around healthcare. And if you look at actually the technologies that are involved, like I said, more than one technology, more than one industry. You have blockchain and smart contracts, which will update your medical records, which will update your utilities contracts on the fly, your insurance contracts. Enterprise resource planning and supply chain management. Obviously, a hospital has to run on something as a backbone. Someone has to tell the surgeons where to turn up and pay them. Supply chain management, well, something's got to feed the 3D printers. They've got to get the materials from somewhere. Cloud, big data, IoT. Obviously, these systems have to run somewhere, collect data from somewhere, from the sensors themselves. And they have to make sense from it with machine learning, with artificial intelligence and robotic assistants. It doesn't have to be physical robots. It can actually be, chatbots, as we call them just now. But smart AI, smart systems. And I want to keep on the same track with the AI and the digital and the machine learning side. And I want to sort of hypothesize around the rise of a self-aware enterprise. Now, I'm not talking about robots and Terminator-type scenarios. What I'm talking about is an awareness, an ambient awareness in the business itself, contextually aware of the business, an enterprise that will actually make strategic decisions. It's not talking about business intelligence that we know of today, which is getting a report, PowerPoint, looking at it, shoving it under my desk, and then thinking about what I need to do with that, or looking at a dashboard in real time and thinking about what I need to do with this information. The AI is actually going to be making these strategic decisions for you. And in order to do this, at SAP, what we call is a digital core. It's those mission-critical processes which are standardized, which are strengthened, which are cloud-enabled, and which have a network or a framework of AI around it. And when I talk about core, if you think about going to a gym or a PT session, the first thing they tell you is you need a strong core. Those stomach exercises, which basically creates this framework around you to be able to do other capabilities around with your body. And it's exactly the same with a business and in the enterprise. If you have a strong core, you're able to extend that core into other capabilities and build around that. And I'm going to allude to something which, later on, which is a little bit different, which is around extending the core around to the edges of your business. If you think about, if we've all seen Shrek, and they talk about onions and ogres and layers, this is exactly the same kind of concept. Your core is right in the heart, it's strong, it's stable, and then around that you start building AI capabilities in layers which with increasing complexity will actually handle queries that consumers throw at you. At some point in the future, nothing will actually touch the core because all the work is actually going to be done by the AI. And when we look at when we talk about digital transformation and business transformation and cultural transformation, we always think about it as practicing at the core, but we tend to think of doing this whole continuous improvement cycle. And there's a phrase that I really like, and a saying which I really like, which is, the electric light bulb did not come about from the continuous improvement of candles. And this is our kind of mentality towards continually doing stuff internally in the business to the nth degree and not actually serving where the innovation takes place. And the innovation takes place on the edge. And the AI and extending that outwards in different layers and different services and connecting those services and connecting those outcomes is where real innovation is going to take place. And this is where I want to bring back the sort of concept of edge. So in IoT, we talk about edge computing, for example. And so all the analytics, they're cloud-enabled, they're sitting on devices with embedded intelligence, real-time analytics, and it takes place on the edge. And in the same way, it's the same that I'm talking about or hypothesizing here about edge business running on the edge. The more interaction and the more outcomes and the more connections are going to be driven outside of the business sphere itself in the core. And I want to relay a quick example of something that happened to me this week. I had my flights cancelled on Sunday by an airline. I received no notification. On Sunday, I had to, purely by accident, I found out I wasn't actually going to be flying here today. I had to phone up the customer service line, spend an hour sitting on hold listening to really nice music. I tried to tweet and Facebook them because they claimed to have a 24/7 social media presence. I received no response, and it wasn't until Lufthansa, separate airline, stepped in on Monday was I able to make this. Now, this other airline actually sent me a text message and an email 2 hours before I was due to fly on Monday. They had automatically rebooked me on a flight, flying out on Tuesday, landing pretty much now. So I would never have made this keynote presentation. Now, the point I want to make is, imagine a scenario where I have my flights cancelled by adverse weather conditions, for example, and the AI knows so much about me, knows my itinerary, knows my schedule. It makes a booking in advance for me without me having to phone up a customer service department that is in line with my expectation and the outcome that I want to reach. And I don't have to pick up the phone, and I don't have to speak to someone, and I don't have to touch anywhere near the core of the business to actually make this happen. The AI is going to do it for me. I made a big song and dance over social media, and I actually found out that this particular airline is doing exactly that. They have a project in the works looking at using AI to automatically rebook customers based on what their original intention is. But this is what we should be thinking about. If we think about how much is actually going to be disrupted, not by pure automation, but by AI, then we should be thinking about extending that AI to do all of these tasks and removing the human element, displacing the human element to do work in a more meaningful way. So has anyone heard of Lemonade Insurance at all? It's a UK-based insurance company, and they hit the headlines quite recently because they processed someone's insurance claim in 3 seconds. And that was from the time of filling out a form on an app, to submitting it, to having it underwritten by an AI underwriter, for the customer to actually receive the approval notice, and for them to generate a payment and notification of that payment back to the customer. That was 3 seconds. It wasn't 3 days, it wasn't 3 hours, it wasn't 3 months or 3 weeks, which is usually the time, when you get a letter through the post asking for more information. It was 3 seconds. And the reason why that was, it was done was because they actually knew so much more information about the customer than normal in real time, and obviously built a picture about the customer that enabled the AI and the processing and the underwriter to actually make that decision. And this is what I mean by layers. You have that digital core that will not change. It's mission critical, it's stable, and it's strong, but everything else around it is flexible and is AI driven. And like I said, if you, in that particular example, the AI processed the query, that's one level of customer outcome and interaction. The deeper it goes, you get to the AI underwriter. That's the next level, but it's still not touching anything inside. The only time it ever touches the core and the inside that you ever have to worry about is when you generate that payment, when it updates the customer record to say, claim made, the customer's made a claim, here's the payment, that's order to cash, that's invoicing, that's the monetary transaction going out, that's it done. That's the only time it touches the core. Everything else is done in layers by AI. And this is only possible because of a concept of which is now called digital twins. So we've moved from the concept of the digital footprint, which is just a shadow of us, of our interactions online, of where we go online, of how we interact, of what transactions we make, to digital twins, which is basically as much information as possible to build a complete picture of my physical presence in a digital environment. And it's not just people, it's physical assets as well. So, and this is really important in a manufacturing sense, where we are building pictures of machinery and objects through physical attributes and through real-time sensor information in predictive maintenance scenarios, for example. So we're able to visualize a machine completely in a virtual environment, completely digitally, and then understand how that machine is working, and then predict whether or not the machine is going to break down. And it's the same with people as well. Our interaction, for example, online, companies are building so much more of a picture of us, of ourselves, that they should be able to use this information to create these new service layers, to create these connections, and to create these types of outcome. You can actually find out more about digital twins at the SAP stand. We've done a project with Nike, and you should have a look at that because it's actually quite fascinating. But like I said, it's data and it's sensors creating a digital twin from a physical asset. I read somewhere that they expect to have, for every physical asset in the world, a digital twin in the cloud somewhere. But the important factor here is, that I want to stress, is that you can create, test, and build new process models or new business models, new customer experiences, new connections, new service layers, new products, without actually having physically to go through the pains of a project and thinking about budgets. You can actually test these, build these, and then run the scenarios of what it should look like and the success before you even build the product or the service itself. And this is the importance of a digital twin. And it's going to become more and more important as we move forward in the next couple of years. So, building a digital economy, we've talked about how it opens up industries to work with each other in different ways, and how it's bigger than one trend, bigger than one industry. I want to bring that in slightly and actually say, well, you can use the same concepts to do exactly the same thing, but just inside your own business. So instead of thinking around joining industries, you think about breaking down silos. And instead of looking at all the different types of technologies, you use those technologies to think about exposing the true nature of what your business is and how it's run. So I want to talk about rubbish. It's literally a rubbish story about going digital. So a local authority in the US ran an experiment with MIT students where they wanted to understand what it actually cost them as an operation, as a local authority, to recycle trash. And what they asked the MIT students and the citizens to do was tag individual items of trash, 2,000 or so, with an RFID transmitter, and then they tracked that, what happened, where the rubbish went. Now, they got back a little under 1,200 valid traces, and the average length that a piece of rubbish traveled was 114 kilometers. The longest trace was created by a $10 printer cartridge that traveled 6,000 kilometers, and the trace vanished because it entered an airbase, and the chances are that that rubbish actually boarded a plane and went somewhere else. But they lost the trace, they couldn't confirm that. So they got that sensor information, and they said, right, well, we really need to understand how much this is actually going to cost us. Now we know where the rubbish goes and how far it goes, how inefficient that particular end of the process. We need to understand how much it's actually going to cost us. So they looked at their supply chain and the resource and the enterprise resource processes, and they got the information by looking at supplier costs, so maintenance costs of the vehicles, how much it costs to buy a vehicle, maintain a vehicle, tire wear, road wear, that kind of thing. Supplier costs in terms of resource costs, staff costs, carbon footprint as well. When you think about it, these things make a hell of a lot of noise and pollution, especially over 6,000 kilometers. And they added all that information up from their core digital processes and digital systems, and they came out with a cost of $5 per kilometer to transport rubbish. Now, if you think $10 printer cartridge traveling 6,000 kilometers at $5 a kilometer, that's not exactly a very efficient process or way to run your business. And by using the same concepts of the digital economy, by looking at the technology and by breaking down the silos, they finally understood how inefficient it was, how costly it was, and they used that information to basically renegotiate contracts, to actually provide a better service to the citizens, to give them the money back. Obviously, they're charging them in terms of council. Well, in the UK, we call it council tax. I don't know what it is in the States. But you know, your taxation, you're paying that money to a local authority to be as grossly inefficient as that. And that's what going digital, that's what building a digital economy means. In that side, they connected silos rather than industries. We're going from large scale and from industries to small scale into the business. And you're connecting your silos with technologies. And in that scenario, it's almost the same as the healthcare example. You're looking at enterprise resource planning and supply chain management. You're using cloud, big data, and IoT, the sensor-driven information that came from the rubbish itself, and then using machine learning to make those correlations. And that's what being and going digital is all about. Building a digital economy is using these technologies and then thinking broader beyond your own industry to actually start connecting the dots. And I'm hoping that gives you some idea of how to sort of go around that. Building an economy, destroying some silos, connecting some of the dots in terms of industries, and using technologies in a different way to expose the true nature of how you run your business and how to make it cost effective. Thank you very much indeed. Go build it.
Yeah. We've got time for Q&A.
Oh, cool.
Any questions from the audience? We've got about a minute or so. What about this idea that you're purporting? Well, first of all, you're not going to tell us which airline you were talking about. Are you? You don't have to. That's okay. But this idea, how open are companies, municipalities, cities, governments? How open are they to what you've just been describing?
So the first thing is that it's funny actually you mentioned open. So open data is a big thing that we have to sort of get over that hurdle. In order to share data between different industries, between different corporations, and I'm sure Edward Snowden will probably make a very big comment about that. But you know, these are utopian sort of scenarios that I'm painting, but they're big picture on purpose because it tries to get people to think that if you connect data and if you do it in the right way, you can connect. You can actually create different level of outcome for you and me and for everyone in the audience. And I think that's what we need to try and get around is building those outcomes and doing it in the right way and doing it in a smarter way.
But you think people are willing to take the steps that are necessary to get there, though?
Yeah, I want that kind of level of service, and therefore I'm willing to understand or willing to sort of trade off the right amount of data and what people are going to do with that data to enable that to happen. I don't have to give everything en masse. I need to sort of be selective and say, right, well, insurance companies only need to use that subset of data, utilities only need to use that subset of data, medical insurance, you only get to use this enough to give me the level of service that I need, but not everything.
Are there certain industries or sectors of the economy that are more open to this than others? I mean, you've mentioned insurance, municipalities, healthcare. Is there one that's more willing to take the step than another?
So in the UK, we've seen a couple of initiatives around healthcare, for example, making healthcare information in your patient records available in certain in certain ways to other corporations or other enterprises and other industries to learn more about and do more analytical work using machine learning to actually understand about disease prevention and stuff like that. And again, for in certain municipalities, for example, they're opening up their traffic data in the cloud, allowing people to actually tap into that and actually create different services around that as well, so which people can download and use on their apps.
And you're not worried about data protection and data security with all of this, because what you're talking about is an even higher level of connectivity and interdependence and sharing.
Yeah. So in my view, I think blockchain might actually be a part of the solution. I think there's a lot riding on blockchain and the promises that it makes. I think we have to be careful not to get carried away with the hype. But I think from a security angle and from a record legitimacy, then blockchain could be a solution in terms of some of that data security. But again, Snowden will be
he'll have something to say.
far more versed than I am in this.
All right. Theo, Priestley, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Appreciate it. Thank you.